to you with a burning question, a question for the ages. Would you still love me if I was a rock? Hello, my name is glitchwish.jpg. I make videos about internet horror, stuff like analog horror, digital horror, creepypastas, internet urban legends, ARGs, and sometimes survival horror, which usually just means Silent Hill. And yes, I am eating good right now because the Silent Hill 2 remake rocks. I love it so much. I will talk about that at a later date. And today, we're going to be covering an internet horror project that I just, it's got me feeling a lot of things. There's a lot going on, and it was suggested to me by my viewers. And what is that series? That series is Vermis Malum, a digital horror ARG crazy fest. And I typically try not to watch other people's coverage of newer projects before I can cover them, but I will be fully transparent. I did watch Nightmine's video on this when it first came out, and at the time that Nightmine made that video, he was like one of the first people to talk about it because it was very small. They had like hundreds of subscribers at the time, which is crazy because the quality is through the roof. And I won't lie to you, I wasn't feeling it when I watched the Nightmine video. And I think it's because it was just so early into the series. When I sat and binged it before making this video, there are like 5 videos out now, and I was sucked in. So I think it was just like a little slow going. And I also think I'm a little resistant to, you know, haunted cartridge style video game creepypasta feeling things. But this is so much more than that. This took Ben Drowned out back and shot him Old Yeller style, let me tell you. So I don't want to talk too long because there's so much to cover, but I'll tell you how we're doing this today. I'm going to start with a as brief as I can make it, summary of the series up to the video ex nihilo, the 5th video, which is the most recent video as of recording. I encourage you, though, go watch this by yourself before you come to me. I want you to come to me because you are stumped or you want to see if I was able to find all the clues that you were able to find, because you probably found more because you're smarter than me. I just took the time to compile them into a video. That's the only difference between you and I. And please watch it first. I'm begging you, because my recap is just enough for it to make sense as I'm talking about it in this video. You need to watch the whole thing. So we're going to do the recap. Then I'm going to go through and look at all the little secret nuggets. There's quite a few. I sure didn't find all of them, and I will be fully transparent. This was a group effort. The group did not ask me to be involved. I went through YouTube comments and found helpful tips, translations of codes, timestamps, all that wonderful jazz. Usually I look to Reddit for things like this, but honestly the YouTube community is way more in tune with Vermis Malum than Miss Reddit over there, so that was fresh and new. And I will, of course, credit everyone as I go through with any clues that I had help with. And then after that, I'll give a little bit of an analysis, what I think's going on, what the hell's going on, right? Then I'll just tell you my thoughts, like, artistically and what I think of it as a story and all that. So, let's get a rolling, because that's a lot of stuff. Let's start with a recap. What the hell happens? The first video is called Vermis Malum. We open on a, rendered CG elevator, which leads to a computer that shows this logo in 3 different forms. The final settles on the titular Vermis Malum, which is clearly some sort of game, and we can assume that the other 2 logos are like developers or companies that worked on the game. And we hear this whistling behind us after it settles on Vermis Malum, and there's some sort of glowing-eyed creature, but it quickly cuts to the bulk of the presentation of this series, which is a video diary from our main character, whose name is Lawrence. You don't know that yet. It doesn't matter if you know that yet or not, to my knowledge, so I'm just going to tell you his name is Lawrence. And he has been recording these video messages to a loved one who has is gone. They're currently not with him. They are elsewhere. We don't know why. And they have been sending messages back and forth to each other in this way. And he tells this person that he finally went upstairs to check a noise he was hearing in the attic because he was worried it was like a pipe or something that burst. And he went up, didn't find anything that could be making the noise, but he finds this laptop tucked into the insulation, and he's able to boot it up, and he finds out it was the property of someone named Arthur, and inside the disk drive is a disc titled Vermis Malum. And then after this, we cut back to him just like recording outside. He's showing, throughout this, he's showing off a park and things like that. And we hear a whistle in the background.
I have to take care of some stuff for work after I finish editing this, and it's already getting pretty late.
Reminiscent of the creature at the beginning. So now onto the second video, Electric Sheep. We open again with our main character sending out a video diary. He describes a dream where he hears someone whistling while he's out by the ocean. So that's the third whistle we've heard, and I bet it's not going to be the last. I know it's not going to be the last. He starts talking about the laptop again, and this time he's installed a screen recorder so we can see it more clearly. There's not a lot on the computer, just some things that Arthur saved in documents, and then like general stuff that comes preloaded on the computer, including Purple Place, bitch. I wish he would pause and play some Purple Place. Despite this, though, the computer says that it's almost completely full. So, shady. The Vermis Malum disk is seemingly empty, however, and then the files in the documents are named Parasite, Disk, Victims, Babel, and Catherine. When he pulls up Parasite, what looks like a scanned image of a book appears. I thought it was a book at first. I think it's literally just how Arthur takes notes. And we find out his name is Arthur Asimov. I assume a reference to Isaac Asimov. A pop-up quickly appears, though, saying that the file's corrupted, but he continues on and is able to do a text-to-speech thing so that in case the screen capture footage is not working correctly, which I think is a good runaround for text-to-speech, and it's a normal text-to-speech voice, not like the scary garbled one we're used to in analog horror, so that's kind of refreshing. The page is talking about a Polaroid of an old computer that has that Vermis Malum icon on it that we've seen already several times. And Arthur says it took a lot of digging through internet rabbit holes to find this, and he's still not even sure that the image is real. And the source to this image is a link that's broken now. The next file, called Disk, shows the Vermis Malum disk that's in the laptop, and we find out that it's a computer game that has no evidence of existing by a developer that there's no record of. So, you already know where we're headed, right? This is the classic spooky video game creepypasta territory. So then the next document is called Victims, and it shows a bloodied couch, which reminds me of a specific real case that I'll get into later that is fully just my own projection, I think. I really don't think it has anything to do with the series. And Arthur says that the house was demolished and refers to the poor girl. Babel is the next document, and it shows 90s source code that's like barely legible, not comprehensible to a modern coder, and he refers to it as a digital Frankenstein's monster. The Catherine doc, what does it have? An analog horror spooky face. It's really, we're getting everything we love right off the bat. Love to see it. Great scary face, by the way. After he signs off, the camera on the laptop turns on by itself, and we see like an image that resembles the Catherine image kind of pop up. Next is Bad Seed, which is honestly originally the video that made me kind of lose interest when I watched it, when Nightmine put the video out, just because it's very much a walkthrough. And typically I struggle with the like full-fledged walkthrough portions of ARGs like this. Like Petscop, y'all, I know I have openly said before that pets got a little difficult for me, it's because there's so much just walking around. So I think that's why I got a little like skeeved out when I originally watched this, but it hit different the second time, and also as I continued on, I feel like it just got better and better, so I'm, you know, my feelings have changed. This video opens with screen recording, and we see that he had Google translated Vermis Malum, and that it is Latin for the worm in the apple, which is why I have my giant worms on strings here and my apple hair clips. They're in the apple. Okay, they're too big for that, those apples. But yes, I love worms on strings. That is a glitch witch fact you may not know. I collect them. I love them. They're great. I don't think that's the worm that's in this series, though. Wouldn't that be great if it was? Anyway, I'm gonna keep talking. He talks about how he noticed that when he was drafting up an email, he was like writing it out in Notepad before sending it in email, something I'm sure we've all done. I love to draft a text in good old, you know, Notes app before I actually write it, because I'm scared I'll send it before I'm ready to send it, you know what I'm saying? So I get why he's doing that. Classic anxiety move, might I say. I see you, Lawrence. I know what you are. He leaves, and he comes back, and he notices that the words have been subtly changed. Like, nothing crazy, but, you know, synonyms of what he meant to say that he does not remember writing. Now he is able to use Vermis Malum, but he's kind of, like, iffy about it. And, you know, he boots it up, and it's the same thing we saw at the beginning, with those two developer logos and then the Vermis Malum start screen. Arthur's save is still there, but it's inaccessible because it says it was made on an older version of Vermis Malum. Lawrence puts his profile in. We finally learn his name is Lawrence this way. Makes a new character, and there's a little part where he has to pick what his favorite color is, and he picks red because he has taste. If y'all can't tell, red is my favorite color. As I sit in my red room with my only black and red tattoos. And this hair is supposed to be red. It's orange to strawberry blonde now because, you know, I went through a hurricane. I haven't had time to get my hair done. We see the opening sequence, which is the elevator affirming that the very beginning was part of the game. Elevator lets him out, and it's like an empty park, very peaceful wilderness vibes, and there's a lot of signs with different symbols on them that when he approaches them, it gives him like a key command on what to do, how to play the game. It's essentially like a tutorial. There's a bunch of dead trees filled with apples, and the key command to pick the apples is snatching.
That is the real thing, snatched.
He tries to go the wrong way, which is so funny because that's something my husband will do. He will explore every single inch of the map, not instead of going the way that the game wants to tell him to, whereas I'm following the path, and you cannot pay me to not follow the path. And yes, I miss out on items that way, but leave me alone. And the game just sets him right back to where he needs to be, because it's like, baby, you can't go that way. When he's reset to the main area, he finds this gigantic rotting apple that's just swarmed with bugs, and it has the most like visceral, nasty, squelchy, buzzy sound. This one is not snatchable. And he finally is able to open his inventory, and he sees that he has a knife and the apples that he's picked. Then he's able to go into a cabin, and here he finds a gold shovel and a phone that rings, and on the other side there's a woman named Beatrice.
Well, let's just do this first.
Don't go down the mountain, please. You're going the wrong way.
Mountain? It fades out. You can't go over there anyway.
That naive master raised a couple low too. It never ends well for you people. Do you know what happens to your body after you die?
He's confused because he can't even go down the mountain. It's something that the game won't even allow, but we will figure out what she means later. Trust and believe. So beyond this, Lawrence can't find what to do next, except for there's a letter that was clearly written by a child, and I'll just go ahead and show that letter so you can read it.
Yeah. Not really sure what to say about that one.
The next video is Random Walk, which is when I fully got sold on this. Oh boy, did I. He records a video diary at night with this very spooky, southern gothic, glowing barn with a cross in it. Ooh, I live for it. I don't know the significance other than there's clearly some religious shit going on. Vaguely, very vaguely, I will say. This is not like a walking bonk situation. He starts complaining that his ear hurts, and this we will keep hearing about. And then he starts to tell like a little anecdote about an article he was given about a medieval scientist who believed that the world was ran by constantly turning wheels that can be manipulated in a way that they could even stop death. And he says this is something that would interest his partner that he's always talking about. When he's standing over the water, this image flashes across the screen, and to me it looks like a uterus and some ovaries. I assume this is like video interference and he doesn't notice it because it's not happening in real life, it's happening over the video, if that makes sense. And this may be when he's editing it, because he talked about putting his video editing software into this laptop. So if the laptop's changing stuff already, like with his notes, why would it not be changing the videos he's editing, right? So he goes back into Vermis Malum, and the elevator takes him to floor 8, which starts in an outdoor area, but it's nighttime and it's lit by these purple fairy lights, and there's constellations in the sky. And he approaches a building called Nero's Palace that we find out is a casino. Another phone rings when he walks in, and there's a woman named Lady Lux who answers. And I'll just play that phone call in full.
Hey, friend. 7 years bad luck, right? And you'll pardon me, but I'm not expecting, well, no more than usual. But we'll make do. New friends are always an awful treat, huh? Welcome to the Garden of Violet Delights. Oh, shucks, you can't see it, but you're making me blush. Oh, please, though, no formalisms.
Okay.
Misfortune is my mother. Anywho, what can I pin you down for, Playboy? Business or pleasure? Well, you're in luck. We've got a big old bachelorette party of one-armed bandits booked in the game hall. Just say the word. But please drop our friend's shovel. Ugly thing. House rules, sorry. My hands are tied. And not in a fun way. Hope you didn't take that mopey talk personally. She left a bad taste in my mouth, too. Some people are just sore losers. Win me something pretty, capiche?
Wow.
He walks towards the game room then and begins playing the slots, and he wins enough to start buying clues from the vending machine. But the like items that he really needs are very expensive. And at this point, it cuts back to just the laptop screen and a new document called Poltergeist. And this document, again by Arthur, explains that deleted files remain as ghosts until they're fully overwritten and can persist for years. So, you know, I think that relates to the validity of Vermis Malum, how it's, you know, showing that the disc is empty at some points, but then he's able to play it. And he also says that he thinks Vermis Malum might be an internet urban legend, so this is maybe written before he gets his hands on it. It cuts back to the game, and Lawrence is playing the slots, and he's figured out a trick. After that, we cut back to Miss Lady on the phone, and she congratulates him on the win and entices him to stay at the casino. And the hotel's like rooms are the only places he's able to access at this time. And most of the doors are locked. They are all named after venomous snakes. That's something to note. And the first door he can actually go to is this open door, and there's some sort of humanoid creature just tweaking inside. And there's also a flash of a chemical sign. We'll get there later, I promise. So that door closes, and then he can go to another door and access a peephole, which shows that rotting apple from earlier, and ooh, the squelching and the buzzing is back. That sound, just like the whistle, will keep happening. At the very ends of the hall, he can enter a room called the Copperhead. Inside is this black void with like a black and white tiled floor. It's either a black and white tiled floor, or it's like the absence of texturing in the game. It could just be the flat, you know, texture of the game. Lack of texture of the game. And he walks towards this fireplace, and it keeps glitching out, and he can see more that's in the room when it glitches out, and he sees there are 3 statues of animals, an elephant, a camel, and a seal, and these were all the animals that were at the park at the very beginning in the first video when he was recording a message for his, person that he's been sending these messages to. So at this point, we know that the game can change based on who is playing it. That is the first, I would say, definitive proof that we have had that. And that it can access his footage, right? Clearly, he is uploading this footage to the computer and it is learning off of this footage. I'm just going to show the last segment of this because this is when I was fully like, okay, we're batting 100 here.
What?
Do you think you'll be the one who finally wins?
Okay, so now the next video is called Hungry Ghost, and this opens with like a, Vermis Malum version of Pac-Man showing a snake and then a worm. A worm is like made out of binary code and it tries to eat a computer. And then we hear that whistle again. We get to Lawrence he's filming at the store and he's on the phone with someone that I think is separate from the person he's been sending these messages to, because he says that the person he's been messaging has not replied in a little bit. We learn a little bit of vague things about Lawrence. He's clearly going through something. He refers to like doing exercises and reading a book to like deal with something, so I assume some sort of therapy. And I don't know exactly what, but he does say that he dreams about being in the car and it raining, so I think he was in an accident. And he says, quote, she, referring to the person he's been sending the messages to, is in Seattle. So I wonder if this is like a girlfriend or a wife that has broken up with him and has just stopped responding. I will elaborate more on that later. I think maybe they might have had a child together and lost the child because it lingered on the dad cards in the store. I will get into that more in my analysis though. Lawrence starts the game again, and this time it opens on floor 7, which is an interior. He picks up a cobalt fork and only has 99 coins despite hitting the jackpot in the previous video, so it must have glitched out when that creature came at him, right? He starts eating these different frozen items because he's in like a frozen freezer grocery store section, which again parallels he was just at the grocery store in the beginning of the video, so it may be learning from him or this already existed, yeah. And each time he eats something, he gets like either a little video or a pop-up or different things, right? Different things pop up as he eats the different foods, and he sees there's a place to hide in the freezer. We hear a whistle again, and then there's a creature that lunges at him and causes the game to freeze. And now a video has appeared in the documents. So these different documents keep popping up as he keeps playing the games, all from Arthur. And this is a video playthrough, and it starts by saying it's not a game, and then shows Arthur playing through a level of Vermis Malum that we have not yet seen. And Arthur believes it's a fake imitation of a game. All the pieces are there, but there's nothing inside. He can find no trace of the developers existing, but he believes it to be a real game. He can track down some people, like voice actors, but not the core developers. The notes may relate to the girl found dead on the couch. Arthur finds that the description tag of the game has been filled with the word parody, but is unsure what it is a parody of. The video then ends. Lawrence starts up the game again, and he's plopped back to the freezer level. This time the phone at the end of the hallway rings. It previously did not, and someone named Big Gull P is on the other end, and he sounds drunk. I don't really have anything else to say about him. This time the creature is not there, but he continues to eat food, including he eats brain food and a YouTube video about how computers learn plays. So not always subtle, and I respect it because some dummies like me, we need to be hit over the head. Lawrence inspects the thing that the creature had been feasting on previously before the game crashed, and it looks like a humanoid heart thing that's colored like the apple had been and is swarmed with flies like the apple. Then he eats a pig's head, and we see a drawing of, you know, the Vermis Malum symbol we've been seeing that says the orphan. And then he hears the creature return, hides in the freezer, eats an apple pie, and a pop-up appears that says, "Wear your new skin," and the screen goes red and is overlaid with the Vermis Malum symbol, and he eats the creature, and there looks like there's like bodies coming from the freezer. So the last video, as of recording, is called Ex Nihilo. And this video opens up with clips from Peter Rabbit, and we hear a baby crying in the back, which, you know, I think that has something to do with maybe there being a child no longer with us. He films another video diary, this time at a garden. He says he keeps having that dream, which we can assume means the accident. And in general, it sounds like he is starting to maybe come to terms with the fact that the person he's sending these messages to does not want to hear from him. He boots up Vermis Malum again, and it starts glitching from the beginning, like the quote shakes a little bit. And this time it opens up on floor 5, which is a dark room with glowing signs that tell him he can use items from his inventory to interact with the world around him. He stabs a chrysalis with the fork he picked up last time, and an overlay of a woman appears with the whistle sound. Then he's inside a bee's nest, and a phone rings, and a bee named Mother Ace is on the other end.
Good afternoon, honey. You're late. There's no worry, though. None of that really matters anymore. You won, by the way. So, congrats on that. Really. This is the end. Most don't get this far. What do you think makes you special? Just kidding. I put out the begonia over there in the corner for you to play with. We have a nifty little arts and crafts station now, too. Let me do the overthinking from here on out. You just kick back, sweetheart. Smell the poppies. I'll poke in on you in a bit to make sure you're taking it all right. Ciao.
So then he starts using the games, the little art station, like a seemingly pointless game called Begonia. And then he goes back and looks at old pictures that all seem pretty normal until a really like crappy drawing of Saturn devouring his son, which causes the game to like crash, and a website for something called Bascania pops up, and there's an old other tab that clearly Lawrence had already had open that refers to New Jersey police seeking a missing person, which is likely the girl that we've been hinting to this whole time. Most links on the Bascania website are broken, but he finds a page detailing a Lincoln County pirate broadcast, and the poster vaguely describes a TV hijacking incident, including a purple demon, but brushes it off to be a prank, referencing things like the Max Headroom broadcast hijacking. There's a little email correspondence that pops up that could be important. And then Lawrence finds an alarm clock behind the painting, and it like essentially wakes him up out of this fake scenario, and he wakes up in a hospital room that's just nasty and filled with bugs. And the whistle's heard again, and Mother Ace actually appears, and she looks scary as hell. So that makes me think that maybe each of the monsters on the level correspond with the voice on the telephone. The screen cuts to binary code, then like starts glitching out, and then ends with a purple face with the Vermis Malum logo on his head saying, "You've been freaked by the purple TV demon," referring to that earlier TV hijacking. So that is all we have as of now. I know that's a lot for me to say that's all we have. That's a lot. So now I'm going to go into all the little crazy codes, and I'll get into what they might mean when I talk about the analysis. But for now, let's start decoding. In video 1, one of the first things I noticed were little numbers and sometimes letters in the bottom right corner of the video. And I wasn't sure what they are, but they are hexadecimals because of the few letters that it's only like a couple of letters that fit. I am a graphic designer. I work with hex codes a lot. That's how we pick what digital colors should be used, like the hashtag 00000, whatever. That's a hex code. So it's hexadecimals, and it translates to the womb forgets. Clearly an important theme going on, womb, babies, all that stuff, right? YouTube user Jamie7367 points out that this could allude to Job 24:20, quote, "The womb forgets them, the worm finds them sweet. They are no longer remembered, so wickedness is broken like a tree." Again, womb, worm, all things we're seeing over and over and over again. So that's what I got from one. I'm sure there's more things. Again, I want to say, I am one person. This is a vast ARG. I'm just trying to compile all that I clued in on, and then would go and look into the comments if I couldn't find an answer to it. If there was something in the comments that I didn't like organically notice, I kind of just ignored it because I didn't want to just troll other people's ideas and discoveries. I wanted to just kind of go off of what I noticed and what, you know, maybe other people's analysis or decoding came off of what I noticed, if that makes sense. So the first thing I'm going to talk about in video 2, I referenced it earlier, the photo of the couch. It reminds me of the real life tragedy of Lacey Fletcher, who was a young woman who horrifically was left essentially to rot to death on her parents' couch by her neglectful parents. She had a pretty severe cognitive health decline that her parents just didn't even attempt to help her with. She could have gotten treatment. They just didn't help her with. She started to get, you know, scared and uncomfortable to leave the house, and they did nothing to help her. And they just literally let her sit on the same couch for years. And when the police found her, she had literally melted into the couch and was being eaten away by insects. So I'm not saying that that is what the creator of this series is attempting to do, because I do think it's very tricky waters when we start using real life cases in fictional ARGs and on fiction stories. I mean, I've already mentioned Pat Scott earlier. They got some heat for, you know, using the rebirthing and the Candace Newmaker murder and all of that. So I don't think this is blatant. This is just, hey, me Glitchwitch saw that couch and it made me think of Lacey Fletcher. The more that the story unfolds, I don't think that's the case, because I do think that the young woman who is missing, and again, they say that she's missing in you know, little collateral clues we see, not that they found her dead on the couch. I think that it's something that the game, or the entity that is the game, did to her. I don't think that's what they're trying to say, but I did want to put it out there in case anyone else also made that parallel. So there is the JavaScript. This was one where I knew something was going on, but I did not have the mental capacity. I can do some basic HTML and that's it. But I looked in the YouTube comments, and the lovely users at the Magzas and at DCTR-MG8KM translated that to abortive _then_and_shapeless_ye_remain _like_the_untimely_embryon_of_a, which is from Dante's Purgatory, the full line reading: abortive then and shapeless ye remain, like the untimely embryon of a worm. Worms. I noticed, I'd watched this and then I started watching it again with my husband. I noticed on my second watch through that there were lines and dots and dashes over some of the text, the words in Arthur's notes, and it was driving me crazy. I was basically positive it was Morse code. I suck at trying to get Morse code translated. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm not using the right translators. So I had to go to YouTube and find out. I had to go to the comments of this video, and at Thrifty Egg, attempted a Morse translation and got slow devoured, which I also think makes sense, fits into the whole worm devouring an apple, right? And the signs based on the key commands let us know that there is a coded alphabet. I did find almost the entire thing decoded on Reddit. I will post that. I will show that here with the credit and everything. So through that, people were able to decode things as the game went on, and a lot of people had already done that, so I kind of just let them do that. You know, I'm late to the game, right? When he looks up Vermis Malum, like in the Google Translate, underneath you see like a Vermont apple website that could be involved, because the teaser text says Malus domestica juicy, which is what it says in the game, like when he clicks on the apple in his inventory. However, and I'm pretty sure Nightmind talked about this in his video, it looks a little too real for me, so don't bother them. I'm a little concerned that it's a real organization, and if it's not, this creator has gone really full into this, and I live. And I think that the naturalist couple that Beatrice, the phone lady, references could be Adam and Eve, because at this point, if you're not picking up on it, each level of that the elevator's going down, we're doing Dante. We're doing Paradiso, Purgatory, and then the Inferno. So I think we're starting up in Paradiso, Heaven, Garden of Eden, all that, and they went down the mountain, meaning they went down the elevator. So even though Lawrence is like, I can't go down the mountain, you won't let me, it's because it's not literally down the mountain, it's down into hell. So I think that's just a funny way to be like, that damn naturalist couple, because, you know, they're naked and just one with nature. So yeah, religious internet horror is alive and well. It will never die, and I will make sure it never dies. How many? Chill, cool. Apple, serpent, worm. Are we shocked, right? Are we shocked? You see an apple icon, of course it's gonna be Adam and Eve. That's what I got for 2. I'm sure there's more that I missed, but anyway, let's move on to video 3. I think this just affirms the whole leveling system, and this is the level for lust. He's at Nero's palace, and Emperor Nero was notoriously a selfish emperor who lusted for power, and you could assume, oh, maybe this means it's greed because it's a casino, but I like it. They didn't go literal. You have Lady Lux, who's very seductive. She evokes lust. There's the kiss on the little statue head, and then one of the most telling things to me that this is lust is the sign on the entranceway, when translated by that alphabet that people translated, says, let those love now who never loved before. Let those who always love now love the more. Thank you to @MorganFisher3881 for translating that in the YouTube comments. The constellation that is up in the sky is Perseus, and the star is Algol, which is also known as the Demon's Head. I was able to figure out it was Perseus. I didn't get the whole Algol thing, so thank you to @McKinney1300 for that. And Algol is a bad omen, and in Greek mythology, it's a serpent's head. It has to do with Medusa. So once again, serpent, worm, all that jazz, right? We're just laying it on thick. There is a section of sped up speech during the gambling part where he's like really hitting the slots hardcore that says, I'm telling you this, it doesn't even matter. She's with someone else now. There's nothing else I can do. Thank you @Janu Kiwi for that. And then when Lawrence walks into the open door, when the thing is like tweaking, I mentioned there's that molecular structure that flashes. And thankfully, @Ghostly Kai points out that this is warfarin. You say a word enough times, it stops being real, which is a blood thinner that's most commonly used to treat embolism, strokes, and thrombosis. I'll touch on that more later. And that's it for video 3. Again, what I could figure out, I'm sure there's more. Video 4, this level is clearly gluttony, because he's eating it up in the freezer section, right? And in Arthur's video, there's a screenshot of an interview that pops up, and @nonservium 1125 notes that this is referring to John Searle's Chinese room argument, which states that a computer, no matter how hard it can trick you, is not able to gain consciousness or sentience. And there's someone with the initials CC that is arguing this, saying that no, computers absolutely can. The actual Pac-Man machine in the middle of the freezer section seems to be a map of the freezer section, with the monster being the ghost and Lawrence being Pac-Man. And Lawrence's player gets a new skin at the end of this level, mirroring the Vermis Malum coded Pac-Man at the beginning when he turns from snake to worm. That's what I have for that one. Moving on to the last video, and we're almost done with the code stuff. Woo! I think that this ring is probably Sloth, just because, you know, we find out that the character's stuck in the hospital bed, and I think that's an interesting take on Sloth, because it's forced sloth. It's not someone being lazy. It's like literally you are unable to do anything but lie there. And I mean, for heaven's sake, the damn Begonia game, you win by doing nothing. Like, that's Sloth if I ever saw it, right? The Bascania website is the most interesting thing in this entire section to me personally. Right off the bat, I got Heaven's Gate vibes. If you're not familiar, Heaven's Gate was a UFO cult in the 1990s. They ended up taking their own lives. They don't believe that they did that. They believe that their souls just left their earthly body and that they lived on in a spaceship that was attached to the Hale-Bopp comet. And almost everyone left with the comet, and a few remained to run the website, and it's still up, and there are still people who are, you know, not involved in the website that are out in the world. I have a book written by Sawyer up here, who was a member of Heaven's Gate, who is still with us. I've spoken with him before. He's a very interesting individual. I highly recommend his book, T&O, Father in Jesus, Heaven's Gate UFO 2 Witnesses, which is about the T&O, the founding members of Heaven's Gate, and their testimony and his time with them. It's very interesting. I have a lot of feelings about Heaven's Gate. I do not like when Marshall Applewhite, the leader of Heaven's Gate, is compared to people like Jim Jones and even David Koresh, because I truly don't think he had malicious intent. I think he found a lot of lonely people who probably may have had their lives end pretty sadly and alone if it wasn't for them finding family in that group. And it's a terrible, hard situation because, you know, while that may be true, that's not an answer or solace for their loved ones that lost a loved one. So it's a very gray situation. There's an incredible documentary on HBO that I think shows both sides of that story in a very respectful way. It's not too pro Heaven's Gate and it's not too pro family members. It really shows both sides. I digress. I'm very passionate about Heaven's Gate, but this Bascania website felt very similar. This Bascania countdown on the website is at 0, so if it is a religious group or, you know, an organization that ended with death, they may no longer be alive. Not sure. We don't have enough information yet. They say when you look down at their information, they're not a religion. They're just a group that shares, you know, the same viewpoint on the world, which, okay, sure. And they say that like-minded people have existed for centuries, going back to the Mayans and all that, with the base belief that humans will overcome a coming adversary. And in reference to this, they quote an oracle tablet from Thumata, quote, "The end of days sees mankind devoured by the great worm." Worm, again. And Bascania itself is the Greek word for the evil eye, which the evil eye is a symbol that is used to ward away evil. So I think Bascania is probably a Y2K cult that thought the world was going to end because of some malevolent virus like Vermis Malum, essentially. And they were trying to stop it. They do say they're not Luddites, that they do believe in technology. Obviously, they have a website. But That's where I'm leaning so far. I hope we get more information about that going forward. The email exchange that flashes up when Lawrence is messing around in the honeybee area includes a Conrad Church, which is likely the CC from the transcript about the Chinese room argument, who was in favor of having the ability of computers having the ability of consciousness. The thread mentions New Jersey real estate, which may relate back to the missing girl that's been mentioned throughout the series, and written by hand on this email exchange, so it's clearly a printout of an email exchange. It says this type of thing cannot come ex nihilo, which ex nihilo is Latin for out of nothing. I think that they're probably referencing whatever virus is behind Vermis Malum. Like, it can't just come out of nothing, right? A person has to make it, right? That's the question at hand. That is all the coded things I could find. I'm sure there's more. Comment below what you found that I didn't. We're just scratching the surface. I can feel it. I can tell. Let's wrap it up with well, we're not wrapping it up. We have 2 more sections. Never mind. But next, what the hell's going on? What's happening? What do I think the story is? I believe that Vermis Malum is some sort of malevolent digital presence that is attempting to overtake modern society, the world, whatever you want to say. I think it's attempting to bring on a new world in a similar fashion that the serpent did in the Bible, but instead of using an apple to tempt us, it's using a computer game, because it's the 21st century, baby. And that opening line, it's the 21st century and new worlds are being built every day. With the internet, it's easier to reach more people. It's easier to reach more vulnerable people like Lawrence. So I almost think it's teasing us by using Adam and Eve. I think that the description where it says parody and Arthur's like, what are they parodying? To me, Vermis Malum is parodying our creation myth. And of course, it's not everybody's creation myth, but Judeo-Christian is a very vocal, loud religious belief in the world. So I think it's parodying that. I think it's making fun of us, thinking that like, oh, well, we can get them to understand what their little story is, which I think is really clever and really interesting. And there's a lot of elements of this that remind me of the game Kineto Pet. If you're familiar, there's a lot of great videos on it. Caleb Finn's is my personal favorite. I'm too scared to play that game. So it's an actual game that is very similar to the general gist of Vermis Malum, but instead of it being a malevolent entity that's trying to like take over the world, it's this lonely little program that just wants digital friends to stay with it forever, and it's kind of sad. Kineto Pet is essentially like a Clippy that gained consciousness and sentience, and he's sad and lonely. So, Vermis Malum is Hydrogen Bomb and Kineto Pet is Coughing Baby, if that makes sense. I think that Vermis Malum is capable of harming people. I'm not quite sure how yet, but I assume it did something to Arthur, because obviously he's, left his computer behind, right? I don't think he would do that if he didn't have to. And then I also believe that the girl, who went missing, that they keep referencing, who I assume is Catherine based on the, document with the scary face. Maybe that is her face after the virus got to her. I'm not sure. They haven't really expounded on that yet. I assume it got her. I don't know how, but she is the earliest victim we know of, right? Because Arthur is referencing her and her disappearance in his notes. So yeah, I think Arthur probably stashed the laptop in his house, which was later rented or purchased by Lawrence, hoping that someone else could finish the job for him because he saw that Vermis Malum was on to him. Frankly, Lawrence is an easy target for Vermis Malum because he is so distracted by whatever tragedy is going on in his personal life that he's just kind of viewing it as a fun escape. And I genuinely do believe that he got in a car accident with his girlfriend or wife, and she was pregnant and lost the baby due to the accident. And the reason why I think that she was still pregnant and the child hadn't been born yet is because of the focus on the womb. That flash of the uterus, the womb forgets hidden message, things like that. I think that she was still pregnant. And I looked into warfarin. I don't know why I can't say that word. A little bit more, and I found out that it can cause miscarriages or for a child to be stillborn when a pregnant woman takes it. Because, you know, when you get pregnant, there's a whole ton of medicines that you can't take, and blood thinners is one of them for that very reason. So I doubt that she was given it by a doctor. I think it literally is just a way to symbolize that she may have miscarried, and, you know, it popping up over that creature in the hotel may have been a physical representation of the grief that she felt going through that. And to take it a step further, you know, there's a chance that Lawrence was given the decision to save her or the baby if she was unconscious or unable to respond after the accident, and he may have chosen her over the child, and she may resent him for that. Because, you know what, let's face it, that's not a conversation a lot of couples actually have. You don't think that's going to happen to you, but it could. So he panicked and he picked, you know, his wife or his girlfriend. And I mean, that's what I would want. And that's, you know, maybe one of the reasons why I will never have a kid. I can't, you know, that's not a decision I'd be willing to make. And I'm unable to have kids, so it doesn't matter. This may be why she left. No matter what, whether he made that decision or they just lost a child, that's a horrible thing for a couple to go through. And there's not really much coming back from that, right? A lot of times that does lead to separation or divorce. So I think she's moved on and she can't deal with him anymore. It's too much pain. Whereas he is maybe delusionally thinking that, you know, she's going to come back. She's just going away for a little bit, and that's maybe how he's coping. And he's also maybe just burying it down by focusing so much on this game. So because of that, the game can get away with more. It can get away with taking over his computer step by step a little bit more. It can get away with messing with his mind a little bit more because he's just not paying attention. When you look at Arthur's playthrough versus Lawrence's, they view this thing totally different. Lawrence is so like, that was kind of weird. And it's like, no, buddy, that's really weird. They just put a thing that exists in the real world by your house into this computer game. How did it figure that out, right? As of right now, my best guess is that Vermis Malum can only like fully take root and take control once the player gets down to the bottom level, which Arthur at one point references the winter level being the infamous winter level. So that's probably, you know, the coldest circle of hell, the inner circle of hell. I don't know what it'll do once that happens. I think that's something that I can't answer. Only the series can answer that. But I don't think anyone has gotten that far yet, because they keep saying like, oh, few people have gotten this far to Lawrence. So I assume Arthur got a little farther than Lawrence has so far, but that Lawrence will probably go farther than Arthur. When it does take root, I assume it'll be some sort of Y2K event, I guess. That's the best thing I can come up with, but it seems very intelligent, and that it likes to play with its prey. The Bascania thing really interests me, and I'm curious to see where that's going to lead, because, you know, it shows up when the game crashes, and I don't know why the game would show him that, because I feel like it's working against the game, kind of, because it gives him information about, like, the purple demon and stuff like that. So it's either taunting him, or there's some form of Arthur still alive on the computer that is, like, trying to help him, which I do believe that could be the case because these other documents keep popping up, right? Maybe Arthur is taking that, you know, ghost data that he talked about in one of his notes, saying like, hey, there's still some data on this computer, I'm trying to save it, and that's why there's so much still on the hard drive. That's my best guess, and that's very similar to the third act of Canino Pet, once again, like the kindly human that got stuck in the computer trying to help the player. I mean, that's what I have up to the most recent video. I cannot wait to see where it continues, and please let me know what you think, because this is just my interpretation. What are my thoughts, just as a consumer of internet horror, a viewer, a lovely audience member? I think this is a home run. I think this may be the best ARG to come out in this decade. I'm truly blown away because it is so detail-oriented and so lovingly made, without being pretentious, without there being too much of a barrier to entry, because even if you're not able to figure out the nitty-gritty code stuff, it's still an enjoyable experience. And I think that's something that's so hard to strike the balance between pleasing your hardcore decoders and the casual viewer. And this does that in such a flawless way. If you just watch the videos, it's entertaining, and you're able to still, you know, parse together what's going on, maybe not as quickly, but you're still able to get to it. And I think that's really important, because that's not icing out, you know, there are a lot of people who enjoy this stuff that aren't as good at, you know, finding hidden codes and stuff. I would call myself in the middle. Like, I'm okay at it, but I'm certainly not as talented as all the people that I, you know, referenced in this video, right? So, applause. It's like a House of Leaves, old school ARG, like, level of just cohesion. I cannot sing the praises of that enough. And, you know, it's believable. I'm not a stickler for, like, the found footage must be, like, severely believable, but when it is, I'm so happy. And everything here makes sense. You know, the setup of Lawrence recording these videos as this last-ditch effort to save his relationship works. And it allows us to get insight to him as a character, how he's feeling, and that at a certain point he's really making these for himself as a way to cope with the situation rather than for her, because she's not even responding. And, you know, it gives a reason for him to screen record the game, because often, you know, it's just like, oh, I'm throwing this up on YouTube, whatever, and that's fine. But when it has that personal, you know, he's almost shouting into the void, but he's just going to keep shouting into the void. I think it's just a great way to frame a series like this, and it makes him a more fully fledged character. I think in other, you know, haunted cartridge ARGs or unfiction series, sometimes the person recording, I don't get them very much. They're truly just a vehicle to get to the game. But in this, Lawrence and Arthur, who I would consider our secondary narrator, you know, I understand them. I feel them authentically, which I love. Lawrence's, like, reluctance to take any of it seriously, I also buy. I think sometimes, you know, with horror things, we yell and say, why would you do that? Why would you go in the basement? And we'd yell at Lawrence and say, why are you so stupid and not realizing what's going on? But he's not a tech guy, and he is so distracted by probably one of the most horrific things anyone could ever go through. Of course, he doesn't care. He probably doesn't care if the critter jumps out of the computer and eats him. He's kind of got nothing left. So I buy it. It's completely plausible. And visually, oh, it's beautiful. The graphics, it looks like a real video game. It reminds me a lot of the ARG-based video game Inscription, which if you like this stuff and you haven't played Inscription, get on it. It's incredible. I would love for, you know, the people behind Inscription to link up with whoever made Vermis Malum and make Vermis Malum a real playable game, because I just think there's a lot of, you know, interest lining up there, because Inscription had an ARG going as it released different chapters of the game, which I missed. I played it after the ARG had completed, but still very cool, very honorific of ARGs as a genre. The setup, like I said, works. I think the little found footage sections are great, adds to the world building, and then, you know, you kind of think they're inconsequential, but then, boom, you know, the statues from the park are in the game. So it's cool, you know, the grocery store is in real life and then it's in the game. So I like this idea that he's uploading the footage to edit it on the computer, and the computer's learning from the footage, or Vermis Malum is learning from the footage. And I am always a huge champion of sound and music and all of that in projects like this, and the sound design in this is impeccable. I literally have like a Pavlovian reaction to the whistle now. It terrifies me. I'm so scared of that whistle. And the same goes for the like squelchy apple buzzy noise whenever we see the big rotting apple. It's so good. Stomach churning, in fact. Overall, this is an impeccable piece of internet horror art. I'm so pleased that I gave it another chance because it truly is unreal. I cannot wait to see where this goes next. I will be watching with bated breath. The most recent video came out like 12 days ago as of recording this. Please go support and subscribe to this channel. It is criminal that they are not more popular than they are. I want them to be one of the big ones, because again, I do think this is the best ARG I've seen this decade. Maybe the past 20 years, honestly. There were a lot of crappy ARGs in the 2020 teens. We went through it, but that's what led me here. So I thank the stones that paved the way. Let me know what you think of Vermis Malum, if you have any theories, things like that, any other series you would like me to check out. Obviously, this was a suggestion, so glad it was suggested, because then I revisited it. I love your suggestions. They make my day. And, you know, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank my lovely, lovely YouTube members. We have the Creepypasta OCs up on screen, and then in Survival Horror Emo, we have E-Rob Odini and So-Called Punk, and then in Analog Horror Scary Face, we have Kira Coffer. If you'd like to become a YouTube member, there's a little join button next to the subscribe button. Would please hit that too. I hate saying that. It makes me feel like a shill. But thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that jazz. Last reminder, the McKinney Family Home Videos pre-order for the VHS tape that I did the box art for. It's the entire first season of the McKinney Family Home Videos. A favorite on this channel. I'm honored that I got to be a part of it in any way. The pre-order end date for that through Retro Release is October 27th, so get on it. You ain't gonna want to miss it, and support Retro Release because they support analog horror, and we love to see it. So thank you so much for watching. I would love you if you were a worm.